Throughout history, symbols have held power, representing hope, faith, and unity. But some symbols were stolen, twisted, and corrupted into marks of terror and hatred. What follows isn't just a collection of designs, it's a catalog of how humans weaponized imagery to spread fear, division, and death. These are the symbols that once meant something pure, now forever stained by the darkness they came to represent. Hooked cross. The swastika wasn't born evil, it was stolen and corrupted. For thousands of years, this ancient symbol represented good luck, well-being, and spirituality across India, Greece, Rome, and even among Native American tribes. The word itself comes from Sanskrit, meaning conducive to well-being. In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, it was sacred and positive. Then Hitler took it. In 1925, he finalized his party's image, a black swastika rotated 45 degrees, set inside a white circle on a blood-red background. These colors echoed the old German imperial flag, while deliberately rejecting the black-red-gold of the Weimar Republic. But Hitler didn't invent this version. He stole it from an Austrian nationalist secret society called the Order of the New Templars, who'd already been using it since 1907. The Nazis transformed this ancient symbol of peace into an emblem of Aryan supremacy, racial hatred, and genocide. They paired it with the imperial eagle, the Parteiadler facing left for the Nazi Party, the Reichsadler facing right as Germany's national emblem. The eagle itself had ancient roots, originating with the Holy Roman Empire, which copied it from Roman army standards symbolizing strength and unity. Despite the swastika's thousands of years as a positive symbol across countless cultures, the Nazis' mere 20-year use has left a permanent, horrifying stain that the world will never forget. The Valknut. Long before modern white supremacists claimed it, the Valknut was a mysterious Norse symbol consisting of 3 interlocked triangles, found on ancient runstones, Viking burial sites, and carved into artifacts across Scandinavia. It appeared alongside depictions of Odin, the Allfather of Norse mythology. The name itself means knot of the slain in Old Norse. Scholars believe it represented Odin's power over death, the connection between the 9 worlds of Norse cosmology, or the transition between life and death. For the Vikings, it likely held deep spiritual significance, possibly marking warriors who died in battle and were chosen for Valhalla, Odin's Hall of the Honored Dead. For over 1,000 years after the Viking Age ended, the Valknut remained an obscure historical curiosity, studied by archaeologists and Norse mythology enthusiasts. Then, modern white supremacists discovered it. Neo-Nazi groups and white nationalists adopted the Valknut because it offered them exactly what they wanted, a symbol with authentic European pagan roots that wasn't as immediately recognizable or legally restricted as the swastika. They could claim Germanic heritage and ancestral pride, while signaling their racist ideology to those who understood the coded meaning. The Valknut now appears on white supremacist flags, neo-Nazi tattoos, and hate group merchandise. It's been spotted at white nationalist rallies, worn by members of racist prison gangs, and displayed alongside swastikas and other explicit Nazi imagery. Some white supremacist groups have even incorporated it into their official logos, combining it with other hate symbols to create new emblems of intolerance. What makes this particularly tragic is that the Valknut's original meaning had nothing to do with racial superiority or hatred. It was a spiritual symbol about mortality, honor, and the Norse understanding of the cosmos. Modern practitioners of Norse paganism, people genuinely interested in historical Viking spirituality without racist ideology, now find themselves unable to display this ancient symbol without being mistaken for white supremacists. This is the same pattern we see repeatedly. White supremacists act as parasites on history, stealing symbols with genuine cultural and spiritual significance, draining them of their original meaning, and filling them with poison. The Valknut joins the swastika, Celtic cross, and countless other symbols that can never quite escape the shadow of hate that's been cast over them. The Totenkopf, before it became synonymous with Nazi death camps, the skull and crossbones, the Totenkopf, was actually a symbol of honor in Prussian military tradition. It first appeared with the elite Prussian Death's Head Hussars cavalry unit, and was worn by members of the German imperial family. During World War I, it served as a regimental badge representing bravery and fearlessness in the face of death. After the war, the symbol was retained by the 5th Cavalry Regiment, continuing its imperial heritage. In the early Nazi period, it was adopted by Hitler's personal bodyguard unit, the Stabsfasche, which eventually evolved into the Schutzstaffel, the SS. But here's where honor became horror. The SS adopted the Totenkopf for their caps, and most infamously, it became the emblem of the SS Totenkopfverbände, the Death's Head units, specifically responsible for running Nazi concentration camps. The very symbol that once represented military courage became the badge worn by guards who committed some of humanity's worst atrocities. These men wearing the skull, or warriors facing death on battlefields. They were administrators of industrial-scale murder, overseeing gas chambers, starvation, medical experiments, and mass executions. The Totenkopf on their caps became a promise. If you saw this symbol, death wasn't coming honorably, it was coming in its most cruel, systematic, dehumanizing form. Even Nazi Germany's regular army used it as a uniform badge, but it's the SS connection that forever tainted what was once a centuries-old military tradition. The skull that once meant we fear no death became we are death itself. Double Victory-Rune. In 1933, SS Commander Walter Heck designed what would become one of the most recognizable symbols of Nazi evil, the double Sieg-Rune, or double Victory-Rune. Two Sig runes placed side by side, resembling lightning bolts striking downward, sharp, aggressive, unmistakable. The design carried deliberate double meaning. First, it represented the initials SS, Schutzstaffel, meaning Defense Corps. Second, it symbolized the rallying cry, Sieg, Sieg, victory, victory. But there was deeper, more sinister symbolism at work. The Sieg-Rune itself was originally the Weaponized from ancient Germanic runic alphabets, traditionally representing the sun and solar energy, that a mystic named Guido von List reinterpreted it in his pseudo-runic Armanen system to mean victory. The Nazis loved this reinterpretation and weaponized it. The SS wasn't just Hitler's paramilitary arm. It became the regime's primary instrument of surveillance, terror, and mass murder across German-occupied Europe. These lightning bolts appeared on their collars, their flags, their vehicles. Wherever those twin runes appeared, horror followed. The Waffen-SS wore them into battle. The Allgemeine-SS wore them while organizing the Holocaust. The Totenkopfverbände wore them while running death camps. Those two simple lightning bolts came to represent systematic genocide, ethnic cleansing, medical experiments on living humans, and industrial-scale murder. The irony is brutal. A symbol once representing the life-giving sun was twisted into a mark worn by men who brought darkness, death, and destruction on an unprecedented scale. Today, those twin lightning bolts remain one of the most recognizable hate symbols worldwide, instantly connecting anyone who displays them to the Nazi legacy of evil. The wolf's hook, long before the Nazis corrupted it. The wolf's Angel was a medieval German symbol inspired by the wolf traps used throughout the Middle Ages. This Z-shaped hook, often stylized with a central horizontal bar that could be reversed or rotated, appeared on banners and town seals in Germany's forested regions. In its early use, people believed the wolf's hook possessed magical powers, specifically the ability to ward off wolves, which were genuine threats to medieval communities. It represented protection, defense of the homeland, and independence. By the 15th century, the symbol had evolved into something more political. It became associated with German liberty and independence, appearing during peasant revolts and throughout the brutal 30 Years' War as a symbol of resistance. Then the Nazis took it. During the Nazi era, the wolf's Angel was adopted by multiple Nazi groups, but most prominently by the Waffen-SS and several of their divisions. It appeared on uniforms, flags, and insignia of units responsible for some of the war's worst atrocities on the Eastern Front. What once protected medieval villages from wolves became a symbol worn by those who hunted humans, partisans, Jews, Romani people, and anyone deemed racially or politically undesirable. The ironic cruelty is staggering. A symbol meant to defend communities was adopted by those who destroyed them. Today, the wolf's Angel is especially linked to neo-Nazi groups. The Aryan Nations, a violent white supremacist organization, uses a variation replacing the crossbar with a sword. In Germany, displaying the wolf's Angel in a Nazi context is illegal, yet it persists among extremist groups worldwide who know exactly what it represents, a direct line connecting modern hate to Nazi ideology. The symbol that once meant protection from wolves now marks those who would be the wolves themselves. The Aryan fist. The clenched fist raised high has been a symbol of resistance, power, and solidarity for over a century. It represented workers' movements, anti-fascist struggles, and most iconically, Black Power during the 1960s civil rights movement. When Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fists on the Olympic podium in 1968, that gesture became an eternal image of defiance against racial oppression. The symbol was pure in its meaning, the oppressed standing strong, refusing to be broken, demanding justice and equality. It represented unity among those fighting against racism, economic exploitation, and systemic injustice. The Black Power fist specifically symbolized African Americans' pride, strength, and determination to overcome centuries of slavery, segregation, and discrimination. Then, in the 1980s, white supremacists decided they wanted it too. With breathtaking audacity and zero self-awareness, racist groups began appropriating the Black Power fist, creating their own version, the Aryan fist, or White Power fist. They simply took the exact same image, an upright clenched fist, and replaced the dark skin with white skin. Sometimes they'd add explicit text like white power, or incorporate it into designs featuring other racist symbols. The psychological operation here is deliberate and insidious. White supremacists wanted to frame themselves as an oppressed group fighting for survival, co-opting the imagery of actual oppressed people's resistance movements. They took a symbol created by people suffering under real systemic racism and tried to repurpose it for an ideology built entirely on maintaining racial hierarchy and white dominance. This wasn't just theft. It was markery. It was claiming victimhood while being the oppressor. It was appropriating the visual language of civil rights struggles to promote the exact opposite: racial supremacy, segregation, and hatred. The Aryan fist appears on white nationalist propaganda, neo-Nazi websites, racist skinhead merchandise, and as tattoos among white supremacist prison gang members. Organizations like the Aryan Brotherhood, Volksfront, and various Klan chapters have used variations of the white fist in their imagery. Some versions show the white fist breaking chains, implying that white people are somehow enslaved or oppressed, a grotesque inversion of reality that ignores centuries of actual enslavement, Jim Crow laws, and ongoing systemic racism against people of color. Other versions show the fist gripping weapons or crushing symbols representing diversity and multiculturalism. The symbol is often combined with the numbers 14 and 88, representing the 14 words white supremacist slogan, and Heil Hitler, swastikas, or Confederate flags, making the racist intent unmistakable. In these contexts, there's no ambiguity. This isn't about labor rights or general empowerment. It's explicitly about white racial dominance. What makes the Aryan fist particularly offensive is its parasitic nature. White supremacists couldn't create their own powerful symbol of resistance because they're not resisting oppression, they're trying to maintain it. So they stole imagery from actual resistance movements, stripped it of its revolutionary meaning, and filled it with exactly the kind of hatred the original symbol was created to fight against. This appropriation also creates confusion and dilutes the power of the original symbol. When the raised fist can mean both black power and white power, depending on skin color, it muddies the waters. It's a deliberate strategy. If everything means everything, nothing means anything, and actual resistance movements lose the clarity of their symbolism. For people genuinely committed to fighting racism and fascism, seeing the raised fist appropriated by white supremacists is particularly galling. It's watching your own resistance imagery stolen and weaponized against you. It's like having your battle cry turned into your enemy's victory chant. The Aryan fist represents a broader white supremacist strategy of appropriation and inversion. They take symbols, slogans, and rhetoric from actual marginalized groups fighting for equality, flip the script to position themselves as victims, and use that victimhood narrative to justify their hatred and violence. It's the same tactic seen when they claim white lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter, or when they talk about white genocide in response to increasing diversity. They're appropriating the language and imagery of oppression while being the actual oppressors, creating a false equivalence that muddies public understanding and allows them to position racist ideology as somehow defensive or protective. The original Black Power fist represented real pain, real struggle, and real courage in the face of systemic violence and discrimination. The Aryan fist represents none of that. It's cosplay victimhood, stolen valor in the culture war, a participation trophy for people who've never actually faced the oppression they claim to be fighting against. Today, when you see a white fist symbol, context is everything. Is it on a neo-Nazi website, tattooed alongside swastikas? combined with explicit white supremacist text, then it's the Aryan fist, and its meaning is clear. The tragedy is that white supremacists took a symbol of genuine resistance and corrupted it into yet another marker of hate. This is perhaps the cruelest form of symbolic theft, taking imagery specifically created to fight oppression and racism and repurposing it to promote oppression and racism. It's not just appropriation, it's weaponized irony, turning people's struggles against them, mocking their resistance by imitating its forms while advancing the exact ideologies that resistance opposed. The Aryan fist stands as a reminder that hate doesn't just create, it steals, corrupts, and defiles, leaving nothing it touches unmarked by its poison. The Celtic cross. The Celtic cross, a Christian cross with a wing around the intersection, emerged in Ireland and regions evangelized by Irish missionaries between the 9th and 12th centuries. It represented the spread of Christianity through Celtic lands, combining Christian symbolism with traditional Celtic design elements. For over a millennium, it was purely a religious symbol marking churches, monasteries, and graves across Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and beyond. Then, in the 1930s and 40s, Norwegian Nazis decided they wanted it. The hijacking wasn't immediate or complete. The Nazis and their collaborators began using variations of the Celtic cross, attracted to its pre-Christian Celtic associations and its visual distinctiveness. But the real transformation came in more recent decades, when neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, and other white supremacist groups made it a staple of their symbology. Importantly, they didn't use the traditional elongated Christian Celtic cross. Instead, they adopted a squared version, a equal-armed cross with a circle, creating a design that's now widely recognized as a generic hate symbol, completely disconnected from its Christian origins. This squared Celtic cross appears on neo-Nazi flags, white supremacist tattoos, KKK literature, and hate group websites worldwide. For modern white supremacists, it serves multiple purposes. It's visually striking, it has European roots they can claim as heritage, and it's less immediately recognizable as a hate symbol than a swastika, giving them some plausible deniability. The tragedy here is profound. A symbol created to represent the spread of Christianity, a religion preaching love, forgiveness, and equality before God, has been corrupted into a mark of racial hatred, violence, and supremacy. The same cross that once marked peaceful monasteries now appears on the flags of groups advocating ethnic cleansing. For many Christians, particularly those of Celtic heritage, this corruption is deeply painful. They can't display their ancestral religious symbol without risking being mistaken for white supremacists. A piece of their spiritual and cultural heritage has been stolen and defiled. This is the cruel irony of symbolic corruption. The victims are just those targeted by hate groups. The victims also include everyone whose meaningful symbols get twisted into something monstrous, who can no longer claim their own heritage without explaining, "No, not like that, not the hate version." The squared Celtic cross proves that hate groups don't just create new symbols, they're parasites, latching on to existing imagery with deep roots and positive meanings, draining it of its original significance, and filling it with poison. And once that happens, the symbol is never quite the same again, forever carrying the dual meaning of what it was and what it became. The black sun, the sun wheel, an equilateral cross within a circle, has existed since prehistoric times, appearing in cultures from Scandinavia to India. It was a Bronze Age symbol representing the sun, life, and spirituality across countless traditions. Simple, universal, meaningful. Then the Nazis, particularly Heinrich Himmler, decided it needed to be special. Himmler, obsessed with Germanic mysticism and the occult, had a specific version of the sun wheel prominently displayed at Weilsburg Castle, his envisioned spiritual headquarters for the SS. This version consisted of 2 concentric circles, with 12 crooked rays emanating outward, creating a design that looked like a black sun with twisted spokes. This became known as the Schwarze Sonne, the Black Sun, and Himmler surrounded it with pseudo-mystical nonsense about ancient Aryan civilizations, lost Germanic knowledge, and the SS's role as spiritual warriors. He transformed an ancient, widespread symbol into something exclusive and sinister, a mark of SS occult practices and racial ideology. The Thule Society, a proto-Nazi occultist group active in the early 1900s, had already been using variations of sun symbols with broken arms, resembling curved swastikas. They linked these to a supposed pre-Christian Aryan origin, claiming Germans descended from ancient advanced civilizations, like the Hindu, Persian, and Greco-Roman cultures. This was pure pseudo-scientific garbage, but it provided the mythological foundation Himmler built upon. The German faith movement, a Nazi-era religious group attempting to replace Christianity with a belief system rooted in Germanic paganism and Nazi ideology, also embraced sun wheel variations. For them, it represented their fantasy of returning to a pure, pre-Christian Germanic spirituality, conveniently ignoring that this spirituality was mostly invented in 19th and 20th centuries. The 5th SS Panzer Division, which operated with particular brutality on the Eastern Front, used the broken sun cross as part of their insignia, directly connecting this ancient symbol to war crimes and genocide. After World War II, the black sun could have faded into historical obscurity. Instead, it became even more popular among neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups worldwide. Why? Because it offers the same ideological connection to Nazism as a swastika, but with plausible deniability. The modern white supremacist version typically shows 12 crooked rays in a specific configuration, often combined with other symbols like a swastika in its center. It appears on neo-Nazi websites, white power merchandise, and as tattoos among racist skinheads and prison gangs. Here's the problem. Similar sunwheel symbols appear in various cultural contexts worldwide, in Native American art, Asian mandalas, Celtic designs, and more. An archaeologist might use a sunwheel symbol in their research. A jewelry maker might include one in a piece inspired by Bronze Age designs. Not every sunwheel is a black sun, but context matters. When you see a black sun symbol combined with other Nazi imagery, or displayed by someone with known white supremacist affiliations, or in the specific 12-ray configuration popularized by the SS, that's not ancient spirituality. That's modern hate wrapped in historical cosplay. The black sun represents how hate groups exploit historical ambiguity. They take symbols with ancient, widespread use, claim them as exclusively Aryan, add some pseudo-mystical Nazi interpretation, and suddenly they have a hate symbol that gives them wiggle room to say, "What? It's just an ancient sun symbol." When confronted, it's strategic, calculated, and it works, because most people don't know the specific configurations and contexts that distinguish a legitimate historical sunwheel from a neo-Nazi black sun. This is modern white supremacy's symbolic strategy. Use imagery obscure enough that they can claim innocence, but clear enough that fellow travelers recognize the signal. The black sun is perfect for this. Ancient enough to claim heritage, Nazi enough to signal ideology, ambiguous enough to deny intent. Himmler would be proud. He wanted the SS to be a mystical order with secret knowledge and exclusive symbols. Today's neo-Nazis continue that tradition, using the black sun as a coded handshake, obvious to insiders, deniable to outsiders, and forever tainted by its association with the SS's occult obsessions and genocidal actions. Number codes. Neo-Nazis learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the most effective symbols aren't symbols at all. They're numbers. Simple digits that most people ignore, but that white supremacists use to identify each other and signal their beliefs without immediate detection. 18 represents Adolf Hitler. You'll see the 88 states of central bodies for white supremacists. You'll see the words, you'll see it, 18, and you'll see it, it's not as good as you want. You'll see it in your face. It's everywhere, once you know to look for it. 8. This is perhaps the most widely used numeric code among neo-Nazis worldwide. It appears in email addresses, license plates when possible, as tattoos, and often combined with other hate symbols. Some white supremacists even use 88 as a greeting or sign-off in communications. 14 refers to David Lane's 14 Words, a slogan created by this American neo-Nazi and founder of the defunct terrorist organization, The Order. His phrases are disturbingly popular among neo-Nazis and the alt-right. The number appears constantly in white supremacist contexts, often combined with 88 as 1488, a double signal of both the 14 words and Heil Hitler. 1488 combines both, 14 for the words, 88 for Heil Hitler. When you see this number combination, there's virtually no innocent explanation. It's a blatant declaration of neo-Nazi beliefs. 111 is used by the Aryan Knights, a prison gang from Idaho, though there are numerous other numeric codes used by various white supremacist groups. The genius, if we can call evil strategic thinking genius, of numeric codes is their invisibility to the uninformed. A person could have 88 tattooed on their arm, and most people would assume it's a birth year, a lucky number, or a sports jersey reference. They could use 14 in their social media handle, and it seems random. They could spray paint 1488 on a wall, and passers-by might think it's an address or date. But to other white supremacists, these numbers are immediately recognizable. They're signals, confirmations of shared ideology, ways to identify allies without explicitly displaying swastikas or other banned symbols. This is particularly useful in contexts where overt Nazi imagery would cause problems: workplaces, social media platforms with hate speech policies, countries where Nazi symbols are illegal, or prisons where certain affiliations need to be coded. The numeric system also allows for layering and combination. A white supremacist might use 14 and 88 separately in different contexts, or combine them with other symbols like the Iron Cross or Celtic Cross. They can adjust the obviousness of their signaling based on their environment. What's particularly insidious is how these codes corrupt ordinary numbers. The number 88 existed long before neo-Nazis adopted it. People born in 1988 should not have to explain their birth year. Someone whose favorite number happens to be 14 should not be suspected of white supremacy. But that's what happens when hate groups colonize common symbols and numbers. They create suspicion and force innocent people to either change their usage or constantly clarify their intent. This numeric coding shows how hate adapts. When swastikas get you arrested or fired, switch to numbers. When explicit racism gets you banned from platforms, use codes. The hatred doesn't diminish, it just gets better at hiding, better at evading consequences, better at spreading while maintaining plausible deniability. And every time someone learns what 88 or 1488 really means, every time they start recognizing these codes in the wild, they realize something disturbing. The signals were always there. They just didn't know how to read them. That's the power and danger of numeric hate codes. They turn everyday numbers into potential markers of extremism, forcing us all to become amateur cryptographers just to identify the neo-Nazis walking among us, hiding their beliefs in plain sight behind mathematics. The triskelion. The triskelion is an ancient symbol consisting of 3 curved or jointed segments spiraling out from a central point. This design appears in various forms across human history, sometimes looking like a 3-pointed swastika with bent arms, sometimes rendered as elegant curved lines or decorative curls. The name comes from Greek, meaning 3-legged. For thousands of years, the triskelion appeared in Celtic art, ancient Greek pottery, and across numerous cultures worldwide. In Celtic tradition, it represented concepts like motion, progress, cycles, and the connection between earth, water, and sky. On the Isle of Man, a 3-legged version became a national symbol, appearing on their flag. In Sicily, a similar design represented the island's 3 points. It was everywhere, meaning many things, but always rooted in ideas of movement, cycles, and interconnection. Then, the Nazis decided they needed more symbols. During the Third Reich, the triskelion's resemblance to a 3-armed swastika made it attractive to Nazi ideologists seeking additional Aryan symbols. While not as prominently used as the swastika or SS runes during the war, the symbol appeared in some Nazi contexts and propaganda, beginning its transformation from an ancient cultural icon to modern hate symbol. But the real corruption came after World War II, particularly in South Africa. The Afrikaner Weerstandsbeweging, AWB, a South African white supremacist group, adopted a specific version of the triskelion for their logo. They modified it to resemble 3 interlocking 7s arranged in a rotating pattern, the 777 triskelion. This wasn't random. They were deliberately creating a symbol that echoed the swastika's rotating motion while using the number 7, which has significance in Christian numerology. The AWB was explicitly neo-Nazi, advocating for racial segregation, opposing the end of apartheid, and engaging in terrorist violence. Their adoption of the 777 triskelion permanently linked this specific configuration to white supremacy. The symbol became their calling card, appearing on their flags, armbands, and propaganda. From South Africa, the 777 triskelion spread to white supremacist movements globally. Racist skinhead groups adopted it enthusiastically. Organizations like Blood and Honor, a violent international neo-Nazi network, incorporated the symbol into their logos and merchandise. It became a popular tattoo among white supremacist gang members, particularly in prisons where more overt Nazi symbols might be restricted. The triskelion's appeal to modern white supremacists is strategic. Like many corrupted symbols, it offers plausible deniability. Someone confronted about their Triskelion tattoo could claim it represents Celtic heritage, Greek culture, or the Isle of Man flag. They could point to its ancient widespread use and pretend innocence, but context reveals truth. When the Triskelion appears alongside swastikas, SS runes, or white power slogans, the meaning is unmistakable. When it's specifically the 777 configuration used by the AWB in Blood and Honor, there's no innocent explanation. When it's tattooed on someone with documented ties to racist gangs, the heritage claim rings hollow. What makes the Triskelion's corruption particularly frustrating is its genuine prevalence in non-racist contexts. Celtic cultural organizations use it. Greek heritage groups incorporate it into their imagery. The Isle of Man's flag features a version. Archaeologists study it in ancient artifacts. For all these legitimate users, the symbol's appropriation by white supremacists creates constant problems. Modern Celtic pagans and heritage enthusiasts face a dilemma. Do they continue using a symbol that's been part of their culture for thousands of years, or do they abandon it to avoid being mistaken for neo-Nazis? It's an unfair choice forced upon them by hate groups who steal cultural symbols and contaminate them with racist ideology. The Triskelion, in its 777 configuration, has become so strongly associated with white supremacy that law enforcement agencies worldwide recognize it as a potential indicator of extremist affiliation. In Europe, where many countries have laws against displaying Nazi symbols, white supremacists often use the Triskelion as a legal alternative that still signals their ideology to those who understand the code. This symbol appears in some of the darkest corners of modern extremism. It's been found in the manifestos of white supremacist terrorists, spray-painted at hate crime scenes, and worn by participants in neo-Nazi rallies. Each appearance reinforces its corrupted meaning, making it harder for people with legitimate cultural connections to the symbol to reclaim it. The tragedy of the Triskelion is the tragedy of symbolic theft writ large. An ancient design representing motion, cycles, and cultural heritage, a symbol that predates Christianity, that appeared in civilizations across continents, that meant something profound about human understanding of time and change, reduced to a calling card for racial hatred. 3 spirals that once represented the endless cycle of life now mark those who would end lives deemed inferior. 3 arms that symbolize progress and forward motion now signal those who want to drag society backward to an imagined past of racial purity. 3 interlocked segments that represented unity and connection now identify those who advocate for segregation and division. The Triskelion proves that no symbol is safe from corruption. Age doesn't protect it. Widespread historical use doesn't protect it. Cultural significance doesn't protect it. If hate groups decide they want it, they'll take it, twist it, and make it theirs, leaving everyone else to navigate the confusion and reclaim what's been stolen. And so the ancient spirals continue turning. But now they carry a double meaning. Heritage for some, hatred for others, with most people unable to tell the difference at a glance. That ambiguity is precisely what makes the Triskelion so useful to modern white supremacists, and so painful to those whose ancestors carved this symbol into stone thousands of years before hate groups corrupted it. The spirals keep turning. The question is, toward what? Toward reclaiming stolen heritage, or toward normalizing hate symbols in plain sight? The answer depends on whether we can learn to read the context, recognize the codes, and refuse to let ancient symbols become permanent casualties in the war against human dignity.